Filmed in front of a studio audience in Austin, Texas, I'm Richard Brevig, and this is Expose UX.
A new startup competition.
Howie Safety is a personal safety app meant to keep you safe at work, play, and everyday life.
Sandbox Commerce's mission is to democratize access to mobile commerce technologies.
Judged on user experience, not their business plan.
Establishing a visual language is absolutely needed here. And when I look at this, it seems a little amateurish because it doesn't have a professional designer's touch to it.
Are they speaking with their users?
Have you done any user research? What's driving this design?
Are they following good design patterns?
That's problematic. There are some standards that you could look to make that a little bit easier.
Does their UX match their business objectives?
You're going to make some decisions that are maybe uninformed and will be very costly to implement.
The winner receives tickets to Big Design Conference, Balsamic Mockups, a wireframing tool that's like sketching on a whiteboard, and Proto.io, a tool for fully interactive, high-fidelity prototypes. The judges are Casey Tice, Vice President of Design at Treason Meal Strategy and Design, Annette Priest, President of Revel Insight, and Ryan Rumsey, Director of Experience Design and Electronic Arts. The startups are Johan Borsch with the Tech Map, Michael Walsh with Evoworld, Karen Bergman with TrustBetter, Ryan Smith with Sandbox Commerce, and Hunter Woodley with Howie Safety. Presented by Big Design Events and filmed on location at IBM Studios, Austin.
Our first startup is the Tech Map. Johan, you now have 30 seconds for your elevator pitch. Are you ready?
Yes.
Go.
Hi everyone, my name is Johan Borch. I'm the CEO and founder of the Tech Map. Now, let me ask you a question. How many of you attended this event knowing who you were going to meet? If it's a potential UX designer or employer or somebody in common? Well, or did you just come for the pizza? Either way, we actually created a platform that helps you do that. It's called the Tech Map. It's a professional curated platform that does that for you. We're 20,000 members and growing, and just think of us like LinkedIn Meetup.
Is up. Thank you.
Okay.
You'll now have 2 minutes for your demo. Are you ready?
Yes.
And go.
So this is actually the platform, the landing page. If you click on join, it basically takes you to this page. And from here, you just log in, or you create an account with LinkedIn. And here, it takes 10 seconds to do that. After you logged in and create an account, then it'll take you to the social platform of it. Now, everybody's wondering, why is it called the Tech Map? Well, we started with a map that actually put all tech companies, service providers, co-working space, angel investors, and companies are hiring. And you can just basically zoom in to whatever potential you're looking for. Now, if you wanted to connect with somebody, you can check people's profile. And when you click their profile, you'll see whether they are a mentor. There's LinkedIn. We're not trying to recreate LinkedIn. This is why we have LinkedIn here. But we have everybody's skill sets and what they're looking for. And if they're looking for a job, they can click on Hire Me. Then we have the event page, where this is where these events like this, for instance, if you were going to attend one of these events, you'll see in the list who's attending this event, for instance. And it's kind of like Eventbrite would take payments online, and we actually expose that for anybody that's running an event to do that for. At the same time, we have jobs that you can go ahead and post. If you're looking for a job, you can see the companies they're hiring. If you go to the bottom, you can apply, and that person will get an email notification. And based on that, you can check on members, their profiles, or you just type, if you're looking for let's say a Java developer, you just click on search and it will find all the Java developers. If you're HR, for instance, and you see who they are, or who the one is are looking for a job, you just click on hire, or just type hire in the search bar, and you'll be able to know to find a job with them or hire them as well. So we're trying to make the communication with the community, with individuals at the event, and also on our platform. So when you come to an event, you see who's coming, and you can check their profile before and after and connect with them.
Johan, thank you. Experts, do you have any recommendations for the Tech Map?
I'd like to know what the background is in terms of, have you done any user research? What's driving this design?
We actually, like I mentioned before, we started with just the map, and we saw the need that there was a lot of other things that we needed in it. And we did a research, but we actually have an event called the Co-Founder, and we post our events there, and we're basically asking every time we do an event, give us feedback. Is there anything else we can implement to help you connect better, and give us some feedback on how the design looks and feel to make it simple.
So you're working with the people who are using it right now?
Yes.
And the map is what started things off, right? And your profiles show where people are based. Is that correct?
The actual map is where the companies are based, but the individuals are not mapped. I don't think people want to be tracked where they live, but it does show the individuals if, for instance, if they're in Austin or different cities.
Johan, go back to the map page, please, the one that had the different circles. So one of the things that you need to know is you have to think about things like physiology and how people perceive things. And one of the things is 1 in 12 males are colorblind. And so when you see the use of color to denote something different, you have to realize a lot of people can't actually use color to denote the differences. So one of the things that I would suggest that you think about is actually using shapes that are unique and make sure that there is something that corresponds to tell people what those are, so that whenever a person views that, 8% of your audience is going to be able to actually use the interface.
So in your pitch, you pitched at events, people looking to connect to each other. Fundamentally in the product, I'm not seeing that at the event. I see a way to connect to people prior, or look at building a profile, which a lot of other social networks have. I think the space of connecting with people at the event is what's sort of missing for me here in terms of the experience that you were looking to deliver. It's a lot of the same stuff that we already see out there. I think it's a bit broad of a product. Rather than recreating what is already out in the marketplace,
right.
Let's focus on what your original pitch was, which was connecting to those people looking to be hired, looking to get investments at the event.
Right. Okay.
I think you also have an opportunity to highlight community with a little bit more emphasis. So right now it's not very apparent what interests people might share or how they might connect with people who have certain interests. That could use some more work.
Okay.
Earlier when we met, we saw that you have an app,
Right.
and my guidance or recommendation for you would be to do some user research to validate that an app is actually going to add enough value for the people who would be using this, because you've got a website that's working on mobile right now. You might not have an audience that's willing to install the app and log into the app and have that working. There might not be enough value in it for them.
Okay.
Was there something specific that he did very well that you saw?
Yeah, I was impressed that you were leveraging existing models that are out there, and I think using LinkedIn, since it's in the purview of a professional space, was quite smart, and the amount of time it takes for somebody to onboard into your application is also quite smart. So you are doing a really good job of getting people into it, and that's great.
Getting 20,000 people onto your product is no small feat either. So you're doing something right. I would sort of repeat on what Annette said, that is a tremendous amount of user research and analytics and data that is accessible to you. Learn from that. Understand how they are currently driving your product. Are there problems that need to be solved with that current audience? And allow that to sort of drive where you want to go.
Okay.
I think you might be able to springboard from some of your success as well. So the map is pretty compelling to me. I work internationally, and I'm often on the road, and I could use a co-working space or could use the chance to go to a meetup in another town or country that I'm not based in. The map is really, it looked pretty intuitive in terms of those buckets that you're putting those events and spaces into. There's a lot of potential utility there. I would look at supporting a traveling user a little bit better.
Experts, thank you for your feedback. Johan, thank you. Let's have a round of applause for TechMap. Our next startup is Evoworld. Michael, you'll now have 30 seconds for your elevator pitch. Are you ready?
Yes.
And go.
Renewable energy is already cheaper than fossil fuels in Texas today. What if you could run an entire rideshare fleet on this solar and wind power? Well, with our Evoworld app, we can operate in 3 modes to maximize the use of electric vehicles, which are very efficient and very low cost. The first is electric rideshare, like your Uber. The second is carpools and shuttles, just like for partners like IBM, and direct EV rentals. We can maximize that car
Michael,
usage.
your time is up. Thank you. You'll now have 2 minutes for your demo. And go.
So here we have the Evo app here, where you'll be able to call up a ride, and you can see the app which looks similar to Uber. And then once you have your profile set up, you'll be able to work on your dashboard and select the mode that you wish to choose. You'll also be able to select one of 3 or 4 vehicles. So the black bar here will have the different vehicles that you can choose from, and then you'll make your selection and you can book it for a current ride, or you can book it for a ride later. You'll be able to see your driver, and you'll also be able to view the car and track it on the map as it comes towards you. This is the Nissan Leaf. We'll be modifying it slightly and put our name on it. This is the Toyota RAV4 EV, also 100% electric, and of course the Tesla Model S. So we'll be able to push the rideshare company further in the future by partnering with various companies to do parking lot solar, parking lot charging, which also keeps the cars in the shade.
Thank you, Michael. Experts, do you have any recommendations for Evoworld?
Yeah, Michael, would you go back to those screens you were showing us? Start at the top. So I noticed that you have a splash screen in there for a mobile application. I would say that that's something that you don't need. People don't have patience to actually see identity that's displayed before they actually get into the application. I would encourage you to make sure you have a very unique and clean icon that is on the phone itself. I also noticed that when I look at the dashboard that the contrast values, meaning the type and its legibility, seems to be not as strong as it could be. That would be something to look at as well.
You're very early in your process. You don't have a functional working app yet, really. You're showing us some slides, right? This is the most opportune time to take advantage of research and bringing on a UX designer. Because you don't really have your product yet. You have a concept of a product. This is when it's going to cost you less to do that research. If you build out an application, if you build a full design without any of that, you're going to make some decisions that are maybe uninformed and will be very costly to undo. So at this moment is precisely when I would encourage you as a startup to bring on a designer that is going to look at this information, look at research, find out what is working, what isn't, not just because you think it might.
And I would add on to that it's not even necessarily a designer, but you want to get that research done. So you need to be working with someone who has a background in research, who can do some interviews for you, who can get you closer to the audience that you're looking to serve.
Fundamentally, the experience of this is so much beyond this application. In your pitch, you're talking about electric vehicles being a very different experience from petrol or diesel. Through the app, I'm not going to see that. In this marketplace with Ubers and Lyfts and Fastens and all these other competing vehicles, I think you're really going to have to drive the experience of being in an electric vehicle, how that's going to be different from all these other vehicles out there. You look at other products on the market like Tom's. There were shoes before Tom's, but they made people connected to sustainability of providing other shoes to people. And I think you've got a potential spot to take advantage of that. The app itself looks like every other app. So what's going to really drive people to go do this, get in those vehicles, and create revenue for you?
That's also a great opportunity for you from a UX perspective to help your customers feel good about the choice that they're making with you. So just like the Nissan Leaf and just like other, like the Prius and things like that, there are different interactions and different things that designers have put into those cars to help the drivers feel good about how well they're driving, right? We've seen dashboards that grow digital leafs based on the fuel economy and how environmentally friendly your driving habits are. I see an opportunity for a similar kind of engagement for your users with this app to see how green they are as a result of these trips.
Yeah, that's a great point. We do have some thoughts about creating a type of pop quiz or with sustainability as the theme.
So human brains have a hard time taking in and processing large numbers and information at scale. I think another opportunity for you is to get some statistics about how many miles a user or a customer of yours has driven or has been driven in an app, and then provide some fun facts or something like that to them based on that information.
One last point, I think, is these other rideshare companies are out there. There's such an experience for the drivers as well. And really, you only see one side of the envelope here. You're seeing what it is for a passenger. What is it for the drivers? What is it for you as a company? How are you going to be improving our Mother Earth, these types of things through the application and or the experience outside of that is another big advantage you have, especially because you're so early on.
Can you go back to the screen where the driver is showcased? So I think that something's very interesting here that you've done. I wouldn't have the big logo again. You don't need to promote yourself. They're already using your application. But I really did like the fact that you had done some things that here in Austin, we rejected Uber because they weren't going to do some basic background checks on people. And your company is actually going to ensure that they were taking care of those things as part of the offering. You need to play that up a little bit here. I think there's a real opportunity, and it's also one of the things that, at least for me personally, in terms of safety, I think that it's a really strong thing that you've done to differentiate yourself in a pretty competitive space. So kudos for that approach.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll make sure we add to that profile.
Thank you, experts. And thank you, Michael. Let's have a round of applause for Evoworld. Our next startup is TrustBetter. Karen, you'll have 30 seconds for your elevator pitch. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
And go.
So TrustBetter.com is at its core building trust between property owners and property users in the shared and rental economies. So think about it. Property owners have the problem where they really need something better than just a credit score to verify that somebody is going to be trustworthy with their property. But also the other side, property users need a way to just show their integrity and their honesty in the shared economy, especially with things like what's happened with Lyft and Uber
Karen,
leaving.
your time's up. You'll now have 2 minutes for your demo. And start.
Awesome. So TrustBetter, as you look at the site, is you can search for profiles, and as you go down the site, you're looking at, why would you choose TrustBetter? Well, again, in the same reason, so that you have value in not only your rental life, but also property owners have a new way in which to verify that somebody is trustworthy with their property. So what they're going to receive, it's easy. We want to make it easy for everyone to really be involved with it, and it's a 5-question objective survey. Did you make required payments, things like that? And that's what's going to come to a property owner from a user requesting it, and that's who we serve. We serve renters, property owners, but also, here's the secret, retailers come and reward both property owners and property users for taking action on our site. So what I want to show you is one of the profiles. So this is one of our test profiles, and it's an endorsement grade of a B. And I made it actually so that somebody had a B score, because as you can see down there, as they build their profile, they've had great scores from this property owner, great scores from this one. But this one, they didn't make all the required payments, and they left it damaged. So now they have a property, a lower score. However, if they go below a C, they won't be seen. So there's not a lot of risk to a user for being on the site. It is a privilege to be on the site. So it can also be any kind of property. It doesn't just think your HomeAways and your Airbnbs. It can be your next boat on Lake Travis. It could be your next Uber or Lyft ride. It could be a TaskRabbit. So your entire life in the shared economy has value. Your entire life of your international and national travel has value on this site. Every single time that you take an economic action in one of those economies, you get a review from a property owner. And another thing that you can do is then after you invite reviews, and it's easy as that to invite a review,
Time
you get to
is
redeem a
up.
reward.
Thank you. Experts, do you have recommendations?
I do. So, your homepage, you had a 30-second pitch that you described why TrustBetter is here. If I were to land on this, there's nothing. I don't see any of your pitch right here. You have a lot of this content below, but a user, when they arrive to your site or your application, they need to know within 10 seconds what you're selling and why they are going to purchase with you. So I think that's got to be improved upon. You're talking about a user not going to be spending a lot of time here. We've sort of introduced the concept that we're all a little bit ADD, and I think you need some content strategy work here. So hiring a specialist who might be a content strategist who can take all of what you've said and put that into very easily understood and recognizable information for a user really quick.
Yeah, I've got a few things to talk about. One of them is the notion of cognitive load. That is the memory that people have to be able to understand things. So when I look at these screens, and if we go back to the very first screen, you basically are presenting a lot of information disorganized. It's not in a format that I can understand. There's a lot of visual clutter. There's a lot of use of icons without an understanding of what those are. So when we go back to the other screen, you'll notice that you have this row of icons above a row of icons, and it is very difficult for me to perceive what that is. Now you may say, well, at the beginning, I actually have text that talks about what those are. But the problem is, as I start to traverse through this, I mentally have a cognitive load to recall what those things were when I'm interfacing with your product, and that can lead to it not being very usable. So I would really consider that. Another thing that I think is really important for you to do is to get a visual designer, a professional visual designer, to go through and create unique, clean icons, because it will create credibility. And one of the things that seems very important for your product is it's all about credibility. It's about that there's trust. And when I look at this, it seems a little amateurish because it doesn't have a professional designer's touch to it. And so a lot of the things that I see here, I'm immediately kind of a bit guarded about whether or not I want to share information, especially this sort of important things. To that point, when I look at your buttons, for example, those buttons are very hard to read. The legibility of them isn't very good. And you have to think about the people that are probably going to be the property owners, and they're going to likely be a little older. So they may not have as good eyesight. So a lot of things need to be brought into consideration when you start to design the interfaces.
So going back to your pitch, you said easy is 1, 2, 3. When you actually get there, where's the 1, 2, 3? I don't think that there's any sort of task flow that's assigned into this. How do I get into a place where I'm ready? I need to do this, I need to do that, and there I'm done, kind of thing. I think you're missing some of that interaction design there. Going back again to what Casey said, you've got a lot of high contrast colors. Establishing a visual language is absolutely needed here. Beyond that, though, you've got what appears to be a scrolling bar, but is that also a menu? How do I know what we've rated the people below on which equipment, which house, which one of those things? There's no clear indication.
Yeah, I would say one of the things that you really want to start to consider is frequency of use. So if you start to look at the people, and the approach that experienced professionals normally take is they do discovery work to truly understand who the types of people are that are going to use this, and they build out archetypes. You might have heard of them as things like personas. What those are these fictional people that are made up of real research that we use to make decisions. So instead of showing all of these things, the likelihood of a person that would rent a property on a vacation versus a tractor that I saw is probably pretty low. So you would think about what are the things that are going to be the most frequently used and present those, and then progressively disclose, which means a person can drill down to get to other things, but it doesn't clutter and add cognitive load to them deciding what it is that they're going to do. And so you might have 4 or 5 different personas that you design for, and based on something early in the actual experience, you get them into a path that they start to have the choices that they're likely to use. So I would really think about that, and a lot of times that comes from working with a user researcher early on to do the discovery work.
This is fairly frequent when I speak to startups. I hear the words, this could be for anything, over and over again. I think you need to solve for one thing, or maybe 2 things. And in your pitch, you talked a lot about just being a property owner.
Mm-hmm.
And we tend to get a little distracted when we're making the things that we make to, oh, we could use this for that and that and that. Let's just solve the thing that you know needs to be solved. And if those other opportunities open up, great. But if you go too broad too quickly with your solution, the user kind of gets lost. They don't know which one, why they're here, kind of thing. So I would say narrow your focus a little bit. Use the research that was recommended to understand really where you need to drive this home.
Experts, thank you for your advice. Karen, thank you. Let's have a round of applause for TrustBetter. Our next startup is Sandbox Commerce. Ryan, you'll now have 30 seconds for your elevator pitch. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
And start.
Sounds good. So there's going to be a $320 billion market opportunity in mobile commerce by 2017 in the US. Yet those projections are based off of only 2% of retailers having mobile apps. So Sandbox Commerce's mission is to democratize access to mobile commerce technologies by providing them this platform that you're about to see to build, deploy, and engage mobile application experiences for their customers.
Thank you. You'll now have 2 minutes for your demo. And go.
Sounds good. So when we're approaching the user experience of how to easily create retail mobile apps for brands, we had to approach 2 sides of the marketplace. One, make it easy for a non-technical person at one of these large retailers to build and deploy a mobile application experience. And then secondly, to engage with the end consumer, because there's no point in having an app if your consumers aren't buying products on it. And so we approached that in 2 different ways. First, by the editor portion of our web application, and that is a 10-step process by which a retail brand who's currently selling online can enter information in these cards on the left, and that, for example, this first card is their app title, their app icons, and see it populate in the iframe on the right. Also, we have a Sandbox Previewer application where they can preview that on their mobile device at any time by logging in with their editor credentials, so they can see it come to life as they're building it. So as they go through the various steps of the editor, they enter their e-commerce credentials, so it integrates with their current inventory. They pick their categories that they want to display in the app, so they have customizability and the pages that are displaying in the iframe, or what gets pulled in and designed. And that's the same with the homepage. So we support a lot of different types of content in the app, videos, images, blog posts, etc. And then we also wanted to make it easy to deploy features that often take months to develop. So Facebook login, Google login, push notifications, geo-beacons, all of this is easily accessible to the brands. Once they've gone through that 10-step process, they have access to the utilities menu where they can engage their customers afterwards. So they can go to the push notification screen, for instance, and then they can schedule a variety of push notifications to be sent at times that offer discount codes or specials or beacons based on the analytics of the actions that their users are taking within the app. And this is really what's differentiated us from the rest of the market.
Thank you, Ryan. Experts, do you have recommendations?
Yeah, I have some. One of the things that I would really encourage you to do is to look at some basic usability principles, or as we call them, heuristics. And there's a few things that kind of step out or jump out to me when I see your interface. You're actually doing some good stuff as well. But let's go back to that initial screen that you had. So when I see the scroll bar bouncing because I need to notify that there's actually the ability to scroll, that's a problem. And when I look at the screen and I see that it's actually a screen within a screen with a scroll bar and another scroll bar that would help manage this list that's on the left, that's problematic. There are some standards that you could look to make that a little bit easier. There are some really good things that you're doing, though. One of them that's a basic principle is allow users to make mistakes and not do things that are going to cause them issues down the line. And you have an undo on there, which I saw, which is really nice as well. Another really good thing that you do is when you make a change to something, you see immediate feedback of what that change is, and it's something that helps the person to know that the thing that they did was what they wanted. That's also really good as well. So I think there's a few places that you could look at this and make it a little stronger by embracing some of the standards that are out there.
You have a full-page web application that, like Casey mentioned, probably isn't taking advantage of that full page. Whitespace is a fantastic thing, but there's also reasons when to use whitespace and when not. So I think you do have room to sort of invest a little more in the area that you can use. Primarily for me, I think you have some key navigational issues. The task flow isn't quite clear, but when I look at that top left, you have your menu button next to your turn off button, next to your save button, next to your undo button. How many accidental errors are you going to incur where somebody goes to click save, but instead they click undo?
So this is
and I think that's a key area where some usability testing can really help you.
I appreciate that. This is actually the admin view, and so since I'm impersonating a client, that's where the turn off, save, and undo is.
Admins
So
are humans too.
Okay, sounds good. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So I think you've got a compelling application here. I think that businesses spend a lot of money and a lot of time getting themselves set up. And if your back end is working well, then success is in your future. But you could be more successful by optimizing that initial use. So there are things that you can do to make that initial setup very easy. And some of that is that very first use, I would recommend some progressive disclosure. That means that you're just revealing or just asking the questions that are immediately relevant, and you're not allowing any other options until those first steps are done.
I think we can definitely use some visual language help. The color palette you have here is maybe not what I would say is most accessible, most usable. I think you can deal with a little bit of typography assistance as well. Also, where's Sandbox? Where's Sandbox Commerce, the name? Where do people know that it's your product? And I know where it is. It's hidden down there in the bottom left-hand corner of your menu. But I think really you want to drive home that people are using Sandbox. I think the core of your product is filling out forms, really. Which forms are required? Which are optional? It looks like I can progress because I have a right arrow without having filled out anything. So I think when you're getting into that information design stuff, that's really going to make a big difference for you. To let a user know before they've incurred an error that an error might occur.
Yeah, so the first time somebody would set up an application, they can only progress to that first step. So everything else is grayed out, and they have to go step by step through the editor at least once fully.
But letting them know how long the particular form is that they're about to fill out, how many steps, and where they are in that process, and in the overall flow to get the store built. So you have two levels of information that you need to be setting expectations with, and also kind of delineating the particular point that someone is in that process.
You're really trying to drive home that somebody is not going to invest 3 to 6 months of development, of headcount, of money to bring an app to market, because you're going to do it in 10 minutes. You want to let them see that, man, before I even start, this is going to take 10 minutes.
Great.
Easy.
Yeah, sounds good. Appreciate it.
Experts, thank you for your recommendations. Ryan, thank you. Let's have a round of applause for Sandbox Commerce. Our final startup is Howie Safety. Hunter, you'll now have 30 seconds for your elevator pitch. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, start.
Every 107 seconds in the United States, someone is sexually assaulted. And that's why I created Howie Safety. Howie Safety is a personal safety app meant to keep you safe at work, play in everyday life. Whether you're meeting someone new, whether you're traveling alone, or you're meeting a client, or you're in big trouble, we've got you covered. And I can say that with confidence because I know on the other end, there's a team of professionals whose whole job is to make sure that you get home safe or you get the help you need through your GPS location and your alert.
Thank you. You'll now have 2 minutes for your demo and start.
Okay. This is the epitome of keep it simple, stupid. We want big icons, big buttons for everybody to make sure that they can see, because most of the time if you're getting in the app, there's a good chance you're going to be in trouble. So the first button we have there is we have the 911 button. Pretty self-explanatory. You can call 911 through the app, but what it also does is it alerts our call center that you're in trouble with your GPS location, and we work with the police to make sure you're okay. The assistance button is if you want to talk to someone directly, a real person. Your car breaks down, you're scared, you're alone, you've got someone you can talk to, and they also know who you are and where you are. The self-alert button has two features. One is you press the self-alert button if you're in trouble. We get a sound alarm. Lets us know you're in trouble. We call you immediately. If you don't pick up, if you can't disarm or give us your safe word, we immediately dispatch the police. You can also press and hold the self-alert button. Say if you're walking home late at night. You can press and hold the button and keep your finger on the screen while you're walking to your car. So what can happen is if you get to your car and you're safe, or if someone comes up to you and threatens you, you take your finger off the screen. The app will then immediately ask you to put in your PIN. If you don't put in the correct PIN within 10 seconds, we dispatch police to your location. We also have a check-in feature, which is basically there for preemptive security. If you're going on a Tinder date, or, I mean, no judgment, but or if you're going to meet a new client, if you're getting in a cab, if you're going on a long car ride and you're alone and you just want to be careful, you can put in a timer that lets us know that, okay, this is your GPS as you're traveling or wherever you are. You can also put in information about who you're seeing, where you're going, any information possible. So if something bad does happen, we know more about who you're with and what's going on. At the end of your timer, you're going to hit 0, and it's going to ask you to put in your PIN. It's going to hit you with some push notifications. If you don't respond in 2 minutes, we dispatch to your location and we track you.
Experts, do you have any recommendations for Howie's safety?
So I think it's an interesting space that your app is trying to serve, and I think that it does some things potentially better than others. I think the self-alert and the check-in features where somebody is just kind of wanting to be extra cautious, maybe their hackles are up and they're just a little concerned and they have advance notice that they want to use this. This is a good scenario, right? They probably are in a relatively safe environment when they launch the app. But I think that you need to spend some time thinking about what danger really means. So you're talking about sexual assault. If I'm on an internet date and I'm in a place with a stranger, I may not have the privacy I need to use this app to have some kind of alert, or to, if I really am in danger, to press the 911 button. So I think you might need to do some user research to explore this and think about the different scenarios that your app would be used in. One thing to consider is having something available in the background, because when you really are in danger and need to use this, you're not going to launch the app. You may not have time, you may not have privacy.
We have a Bluetooth button that you can wear on your person. And so let's say you can't get to your phone in time, you press that button and it will activate the phone.
We were intrigued to see the Bluetooth functionality with your button, and that could be a compelling use, but it also presents some special challenges too, because it's easy to accidentally knock something with the back of your wrist. I know my watches are pretty scratched up. So you might want to think about different form factors for that button. Maybe it gets incorporated into jewelry or a necklace or something else that's maybe a little bit less likely to be accidentally pressed.
One of the things that happens when you do discovery work and you start to truly understand the archetypes of the people that are going to use your products and understand them from actually going and being in life with them and creating reports from that, is you'll start to unpack these sort of things so that when you design, you can take those considerations into play. And that's a really important thing to do, especially when you have these elements that are very social.
When we reviewed your app earlier, we mentioned, or you mentioned, sorry, that you had 4 months of this actually being out in the world, and that the data was telling you that certain features out of these 4 were being used and others had never been used. I wonder if we almost are trying to do too much. Your thumb has to now choose between 4 main calls to action. And I think your data is telling you that perhaps there might be 1. That's again where usability testing is going to look at the data, look how it's being used, and maybe go to a more default state that says this is what you can do first. There are other options that maybe you need, but this is what we really want you to do, this one thing. I think that will help.
That's great input. Thank you.
So one of the things that when you go and do research, and what's really fascinating about this space that you're in, and I applaud you for taking on this, creating something to try to solve a real social issue. But we go out and do research, and there are these moments of truth. And those are the pinnacle moments that occur when it's do or die for the experiences that we're creating. And in your space, it's really rather interesting because those are life-threatening or life-altering situations that occur. And so one of the things I would say is it's really important to make sure that you understand that the technology is going to function the way that you want it to function when it's mission critical. And I know that Annette and Ryan had talked a little bit about that, but there's also some interesting technologies because of the smartphones that could come into play. The notion of having to use a button to actually instigate something perhaps isn't the right approach. The accelerometer inside of a smartphone would allow somebody to do something unique with that phone to allow that to say, hey, there's something going on here. So one of the things that I would really encourage you to do again is to make sure that you have professionals that are helping you on that journey and really understanding those moments of truth so that it does work when it's mission critical, because if it doesn't, that's game over, and that creates a situation for you as a startup that you don't want to be in.
That's something no one wants to happen, especially. Thank you very much.
Experts, thank you so much for your recommendations. Hunter, thank you. Let's have a round of applause for Howie Safety. The experts will now choose a winner. They're looking for the startup with the best user experience. Experts, welcome back. Have you made a decision?
We have. We've selected Sandbox Commerce.
Great. Ryan, what influenced your decision to choose Sandbox?
For me, I think we're really looking at somebody who understood their business goals in the application and were addressing them directly. That there was a clear focus of going towards that. So that was one of the criteria that was important for me.
Annette, what about you?
We felt like there was an understanding of the audience that you're serving, and you're doing that well.
And Casey?
Yeah, I was impressed that you're iterating with actual users to get feedback along the way, and that you're actually embracing some user-centered approaches in terms of how you're going about doing it.
Thank you, experts, for your valuable time and feedback. And to the other startups, I just want to say, take the feedback that you've received and use it to improve your products and grow your businesses. Thank you. From Austin, Texas, this has been Expose UX.